looks like makes you look like you're sitting on a yoga mat in a very zen location.
All right, Suzanne, we're recording.
Okay, so we will call to order at 5:17 p.m. First order of business is call to order, beginning with Budget Advisory Committee members. We'll start with Chelsea at the top left of my screen.
Here.
And Joel Moore here.
And Suzanne Dirksen, chair. Steve will be joining us late, but he does plan to join sooner than later. Okay, staff and then council.
Jenny Nolan's here.
Maria Sabata.
Councilmember Russell.
Oh, thank you.
And do we have a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting? And a second. Great. All in favor? Aye. Great. Okay. So I think we can dive right into the report. Thanks, Joel. Go ahead.
Suzanne, we might have to do some housekeeping first. I think we have to have our election of our chair and vice chair.
Is that something that we could do once Steve joins, or do we need to address that first? Okay.
No, we can do that once Steve joins. Yep.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah, so I'm in favor of just diving in and reviewing our report. Joel, thanks for going in and working on the formatting and revisions and incorporating changes. How do you guys want to do this? Do you have a list of items you want to go through? Do you just want to go through paragraph by paragraph? Joel, what do you have in mind?
I was thinking we could go paragraph by paragraph. I think where people had questions, I tried to leave those in so that we can kind of address them as they come up, if that works for you guys.
Yeah.
There it is.
There it is. All right. There I am. I'm not a ranking member or anything. And I don't expect that to change after today's election, by the way.
Good. Get ready.
No.
Actually, that's something I was going to change. I don't think we need to put ranking member after Steve and then nothing after your name.
Okay. Well, I was just thinking that if I did that, I could put his name before mine since he's been here a lot longer.
I like it the way you've just edited it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
We'll go with that. I did just go through and sort of outline us, and I kept the introduction as you guys put it in, except added some COVID context.
Thank you.
Special events. I don't think there were any big questions until we got to do that.
Really quick, sorry, on the italicized, I know we had talked about italicizing the main points of the main suggestions, recommendations in each paragraph. I don't know if we continue that throughout the whole report. So either way, I just think we should make it consistent.
Sure. Do you guys have a preference? The only thing I noticed that y'all put sort of a summary of recommendations at the end. Would y'all rather just leave the paragraph language normal text and then pull out the recommendations for that end summary?
I wouldn't change the text in any way. I would just either italicize or not italicize.
I would recommend just not italicizing anything, just make it clean and really readable and not having confusion. And then we don't have to go through and try to re-italicize stuff that we haven't already.
All right, we can do that. I think the first thing that people had real questions about were the summer concerts paragraph.
Yeah. And forgive me if we didn't, explicitly speak to this, or if this is a change from a discussion that we had before. I know there's a lot of opportunity to bringing events closer to the 3400 block of Broadway. I think when it comes to a summer concert, again, this is pre-COVID summer concerts, outdoors, people commingling. I think it's really the perfect location, and I don't want to see, I know there's not a whole lot of business activity in that area right now, but I don't want to see that area, I don't know, be overlooked. So,
Maybe I have no issue with that. I wonder if we can suggest that maybe they look into additional concerts near downtown, or if the summer concert series is to expand.
yeah, so
Or you're still not on board with that?
I don't know. I suppose the way that I envision it getting bigger and better and more financially stable is if we can enhance the number of vendors who show up at the events. And I know that's been an ongoing effort that hasn't seen a whole lot of success, but I'm just one of four. I know Steve doesn't love the idea of closing down Broadway.
Right.
Truth be told, I just like that location for summer concerts. Okay. So I don't know that I have a whole lot of suggestions. I don't want to be that girl that's, poo-pooing an idea without offering a suggestion, but that's my 2 cents on that paragraph.
Oh, I'll poo-poo later on. So.
Okay.
My question is, there's a highlighted section about a question about attendance being justifying the cost of the event, which I think was part of the concern was maybe if we moved the venue to a place that would also boost more revenue, would that make it more worthwhile? Is there a way to hone in on that of maybe doing like a cost analysis, or is there anything that we think is useful to talk about with concerts if it doesn't include maybe moving the venue?
Maybe that's part of the polling question to see if people think that they would be more likely to attend if the venue was different.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Joel.
Does that work for you, Chelsea, or is that?
No, that works for me. Absolutely. I think that's a way to kind of like address it, but maybe redirect it in a way that doesn't actually put us in a position of recommending that we change the venue if we're not aligned on that.
Okay. Let's see. Then recommend polling to all right. Cool. I don't think anybody had anything on. Yeah, it seemed like we pulled out all of the recommendations from the block party section. So should we pull that out, or do you? I saw that somebody mentioned that perhaps there was a chance for farmers markets again, given demographic shifts and interests.
Yeah, actually, can we back up to the Christmas parade and tree lighting? I know there's no actual comments in our Google Doc, but I just wanted to verbally share this comment. I think this, we talk about, we have the statement, as with other events, increased food and beverage and craft vendor engagement are encouraged. This is just one other example of how allowing, easing the way for food trucks to, participate in our local economy is really going to benefit. So I don't know. I just read a note, like another great reference to Section A. I'm not saying we have to change anything, but it just seems to be a common theme in our events section. So that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah. It's it seems to come up a lot.
So I interrupted you with the block party section.
I absolutely want to. Don't mean to skip over anything. If you have something, absolutely bring it up. Block party though. Do we want to mention like other options for downtown? I know that Steve doesn't particularly want to do downtown.
Yeah. So my 2 cents is. I think this is an example of something that's not broken, therefore it doesn't need to be fixed. And I think the city's been really adaptive to
They have.
yeah, to coming up with creative ways to keep our community in that area and socializing in that area. And this was one of my bullet points at the end of the document. So I just really don't know what we have to say about the block party other than it's worked out well. We look forward to seeing it again in the future. And that might mean that we just don't speak about it in this report.
Yeah, I think that, and if we don't, my inclination is if we don't have anything to say about it, we can pull it out altogether. Does that work for you guys?
Yeah.
Done. Perfect. 4th of July.
Yeah, Chelsea and I collectively worked on this section. I'm sure you reviewed it. I really don't have anything to add.
Yeah, it looked good to me. I agree.
The only thing I would add, and this is something I know, Suzanne, we had discussed maybe canceled the event for this year, but we had already budgeted for it, potentially rolling over the budgeted cost for 2020 to 2021 so that we didn't have to make any changes until 2022. Is it worth thinking about that or including that, or do we want to go ahead and just not?
You're a little muffled.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me any better?
Better.
Yeah, better. Yep.
Could you hear anything that I said?
Half of it. But
yeah,
since Steve was logging on, why don't you just reiterate?
Oh, I was just saying we had discussed the idea of maybe making a recommendation that all 2022 budgeted or 2020 budgeted funds for this event be used for 2021 and that no potential changes would be implemented until 2022, given that this year's event was canceled. Is it worth including that still, or do you think that's unnecessary?
I'm in favor of no changes in 2021. I see 2021 as being an exploratory year and then implementing change in 2022.
Yeah, I can see that unless Littleton and everybody else decide to kick it in this year. But
yeah, maybe we don't want to give more time. Maybe the professor actually would help get the agreement done sooner. Maybe it's fine. I just wanted to bring it up because we had discussed it.
Yeah, I feel like 2020 was kind of a freebie. Like, here's our recommendations, and you get that much extra time to figure it out. That's my perception.
Okay, works for me.
great.
Hey everybody, sorry I was late to the party. I was just going to say that I support all those recommendations. I think this section looks good.
Well, just running back quickly, it didn't seem like there were too many recommendations through here, except that we agreed to remove the suggestion for moving any concerts to downtown Inglewood, but to use polling to see if there's any sort of sentiment that a different location might draw more attendance. Does that work on your end, Steve?
Yeah, that's fine by me. My hard no is Broadway shutdowns. So if we want to look at using other spaces, I'm okay with that.
Okay, cool. Then on to reserves policy. Have you guys had a chance to read this, or do you need a minute with it?
I read it and I found a minor typo about halfway in, so I'll chime in when we get to that part.
Okay. So council agreed to finish policies 2-month cash reserve. Consistently exceeded the target amount. Where did I put it? I had last year's pulled up here somewhere, but I don't know where it went to.
Steve, are there any significant changes between the recommendation of last year and this year?
I would say probably the most significant change would be a specific recommendation to spend on parks. But other than that, the spirit of last year's recommendation fits hand in hand with this year's. It's more of a renewed concern that money is sitting in an account continuing to grow while it is losing value and not being utilized for the purposes for which it was collected.
Yeah. So with that, so section B, Joel, the second paragraph.
Sorry, here, just 1 second.
No problem.
There you go. So this is what last year's looked like.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fine with,
So I felt kind of like the subject of ratcheting and sliding reserves wasn't fully understood last year, and I took a stab at explaining it slightly better this year. I'm not sure if I actually accomplished that or not, but the idea that there are specific targets and specific triggers that float on a year-to-year basis based upon how the economy does versus the projections was really what I was trying to capture.
I wonder if a visual would be helpful.
I think that would be, or it would be helpful for me, but I don't know about the people who will be reading it. So I've been in favor of visuals.
Steve, what do you think?
You'll get no argument from me on that. One of Steve's fundamental rules of business is that bosses like charts.
I like your haircut, by the way. I haven't seen you in a while.
Thanks, Joel.
Excuse me.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess it's largely the same. I guess my concern with this is I felt like last year we were encouraging them to use reserves to pay down some of the infrastructure costs, but then this year it goes explicitly against that. Is that your purpose, Steve, or am I misreading? Or
No. So infrastructure can be any number of things, but one of the biggest infrastructure challenges right now is enterprise funds, and council is aimed at moving general fund money to enterprise funds. I don't agree with that. We have general fund infrastructure items like parks irrigation and just general parks design, capital expenditures that come out of the general fund that general fund money should support. When we divert general fund money to enterprise funds, I believe philosophically that we are defying the purpose of the enterprise fund in doing that.
Sure. From a business sense, I agree with that.
From a government sense, you also agree with it?
From a business sense, from a business perspective. Yeah, I like the idea of specifically speaking to improving parks, namely Cushing Park. I really don't have any strong opinions about this section one way or another, or strong edits. Just the one typo in the second paragraph, section B, scroll down, stop. Even if Inglewood used a portion of the reserve above policy. Right there. That's all. That was my minor typo that I found.
Is reserve above policy a term of art, or is that just how we're phrasing it in here?
It's just how we phrase it. It's the best description I could think of. We set a target policy of the 2 months.
Sure.
And we are consistently operating in defiance of that. And I view it as equally bad to be operating above that target as it would be to operate below that, which is the purpose of the proposal to ratchet and slide. Then we have a set policy target that we're always meeting, And if we fail to meet policy, then there's something structurally that we're doing incorrectly that we need to change.
Yeah.
So I see your note there, Joel, about the question on enterprise funds. Is your reservation that you believe that we should be contributing general fund money to the enterprises?
Yes, I think that not generally overall, but I don't have, I guess, blanket opposition to it the way that
Okay.
this paragraph states.
So my concern with that, to flesh that out a little bit more, is not only do we face the 10% requirement, but based on the revenues that these enterprises are bringing in, that 10% is really just a drop in the bucket. So it's basically, to sum it up, a political move to transfer money from the general fund to the enterprise fund. Look at us, we're doing something. And I don't agree with that. I think that we should have a purpose for our dollars beyond the political appearance.
Sure. I guess my concern is that if there's, a larger issue that needs more timely action, that might be, the best use of funds in the moment.
Yeah, we loaned $3 million to the Stormwater Fund from reserves for that purpose. That is a transfer that I would support because it's not a cash supplement, it's a
Right.
loan. So the fund needed immediate capitalization, and that's what we did.
So I guess then I'm thinking of it in those terms, then transfer versus loan. I come more to your side of it. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and maybe there's probably a way for us to clarify that. Maybe we refer to it as a direct transfer as opposed to a loan. So we're saying we're not opposed to leveraging this money for an enterprise so that it's in a better position to draw bonds or raise fees in the future so that it can support itself in the interim, bridge money. But just giving it as a gift to an enterprise that's supposed to be fee supported really rubs me the wrong way. And
Okay.
I did an exception to that, in that I believe that it would be fair, if that's the right term to use, or acceptable, to set up some sort of sinking fund to support people who perhaps can't pay their water bill or are harmed by fee increases.
Yeah, I liked that suggestion in
On a
the
needs
next
basis.
paragraph. Absolutely.
I mean, what hits home for me, and this doesn't light a fire in my belly the same way it does for Steve, but the two statements that really stand out to me that I think really speak to my feelings toward this are, we believe that enterprise funds should do what they are designed to do, support themselves with fees charged for service. And then later, we believe general fund money should serve the purpose for which it was collected: general operations, police, library, fire, and parks, rather than fee-based enterprises. So that's really the meat and potatoes for me personally, and why I'm in favor of this reserve policy.
Cool. Jill, do you have anything to add for that one?
No, I'm kind of with Suzanne. I don't have strong opinions. I do think clarifying the transfer versus loan language would be helpful. Rather, if it's parenthetical or a footnote or something, I think is a useful call out. Just for clarity.
Okay. Then moving down to the next paragraph, the proposed use of reserves. I'd like the suggestion about assistance for folks who might see increases in their enterprise payments. How do you guys feel?
And what I had suggested in last year's cycle was actually a rebate from the general fund. So it's kind of like a hands-off transfer. So, the city sends utility bills, and what the city would do in this case, rather than transferring money directly to the enterprise, it would just issue a sort of a quote-unquote tax rebate or a citizen rebate on the utility bill across the board to all ratepayers out of that surplus. But that got even less wind than the ratcheting and sliding reserves. So I don't think that's a very popular idea. Council seems inclined to transfer the money directly to the enterprise to establish a fund for ratepayers who are harmed by rate increases.
Yeah, I think it was a creative idea that would have raised legal eyebrows, if I remember correctly from discussions last year.
Okay. With that in mind, Steve recommends a cap of that sort of expenditure. Are people okay with that general idea?
Yep.
I could be on board with that.
Cool.
I Yeah, I could get on board with that. I question how much it costs.
Yeah, I honestly have no idea what the actual fiscal impact of that would be. Well, moving on to Steve's next point was using portion of the remaining reserve of policy for parks improvements. I think I may have been out of town when you guys had the visit from. Well, no, I was here for the Parks Rec and Library person. Yeah, I don't know much about Cushing Park. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Did that come from one of our presentations?
Not exactly. That's more something that I personally have kind of had feelings about. I've visited Cushing Park once. Cushing Park is in the city center area. It could be a real gym. It's right off the light rail. It's very, just a block away from the city center, and it has a water feature and a skate park, but it's not. It's a design from the 60s or 70s, so it doesn't have those modern design features that reduce problems in public areas. And so my visit there was not very much fun. I was in a shelter, kind of just hanging out, reading a book, smoking a cigar, and 20 feet away from here, a couple of, I don't know, presumably homeless guys exchanging information and possibly something else. So I mean, it really could be a very, very nice park, but it needs some pretty significant design upgrades to make it that way. If you rotate around to some more pictures, maybe the Google road street map.
I thought I was still sharing the other screen. Good thing there's nothing too bad.
Yeah, they show the skate park, but really, if you just go out to the city center and you hit a walk from the light rail parking lot, the flat surface parking lot, across the street from that is where Cushing is. So that would be the one that I would choose. I know other people may have different ideas. I know that the Parks Department in particular would very much like to upgrade the irrigation systems across all of our parks. And that has one big drawback of being an improvement that the citizens can't see. So I did mention that, but if you rotate around on that view a little bit, Joel, you'll see the shelters that I'm making reference to. They're angled in such a way that you can't see them from Dartmouth or from Elati. There, I think is the street. A little, yeah. So there are just some design changes and improvements that need to be made to sort of separate those constituencies and also make the general area more viewable from the street, which has an immediate reduction in I'll just say crime.
Mm-hmm.
I have nothing against the idea. I remember, was there a parks bond issue that was going to the ballot this year, or was that 2021? I'm trying to remember from.
So there is not one on the 2020 ballot. I can tell you that. That I know of. I haven't watched the last few council meetings, so I don't know if they've made any changes, but I think 2021 at this point would be the earliest they were talking about. And we had originally thought when I was on working with Friends of Inglewood Park that they were going to put a bond issue on in 2020, and that has not happened.
Okay. I guess I think I was remembering the Friends of Inglewood Parks discussion. Okay. How do you guys feel, Chelsea and Suzanne?
So for me, the paragraph right above this one where it talks about using surplus for park improvements, I'm great with that. My only thought about the entire paragraph on Cushing is simply that we, because it wasn't something that was presented in the committee, and because it's more anecdotal from, so I know, like, I think Suzanne probably also would love to see this. I think you mentioned Cushing as well, but I don't think I have enough information to know the status of all the other parks and kind of evaluate if this makes sense for us as a committee to recommend one over all of the others. Is there maybe an opportunity to adjust the language to say, you know, one possibility might include Cushing Park instead of making such a strong statement of this is the one we would recommend, just without more data? I think it might be a little hard to make such a strong statement. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, and I'm okay with that. What I can tell you is that Cushing is on the Parks and Recreation Master Plan from 2017. So it's been a desired rebuild for quite some time, but keeping the same decision makers on the same path has been challenging. So that may have shifted.
Yeah, I really like what you had to say, Chelsea. So I think proposing that we use reserves to support park improvements is on par with what we've heard from community. I think, you know, in terms of which parks need improvements and which parks don't, like my neighborhood park was recently improved, so it wouldn't really be fair to speak to my neighborhood park because it's my neighborhood park. But Steve's right. There was a, you know, a laundry list of parks and specific improvements on that master plan. So as long as this is aligned with that, I'm okay. I really like what Chelsea suggests about using it more of as an example and kind of leaving it up to the Parks Department to figure out where those funds can be allocated best. But yeah, and what I know of Cushing Park, I don't spend a lot of time there. I've driven by there. I know it solicits a lot of police activity. And I like the idea of investing in our parks because I really want Inglewood to be a destination for people outside of our city. And I think parks is a, you know, method for doing so.
I think, yeah, my discomfort was singling it out as like the recipient, so I'm totally on board with you guys' suggestion of strongly encouraging, perhaps. Anything else on the parks piece of it?
Nope.
The ratcheting thing. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think it's a great suggestion.
Like,
Nothing bad will come from allocating funds to Cushing Park.
ratcheting and sliding.
Are there any substantive changes from this and last year's recommendation, Steve, that we should know about?
So I think probably the biggest substantive change that was made here was the direct recommendation of the 50% sweep. That I don't believe we included in last year's. So what we're saying is, or what I said in this year's report was, we any year that we have a surplus above projection, we sweep half that surplus into the reserves, and then we reset the reserve target to that new level. And then
level, you mean the level that would meet 50% of that would meet the goal plus 50% of the surplus?
I'm talking specifically about a target number, and maybe I didn't make that clear. So we would start with the baseline percentage, 16.7%, and then if, for instance, next year we had $1 million surplus in our budget, then we would have 16.7% of the previous year plus $500,000, and that numerical figure would be the new reserve target. So what you're doing then is you're bumping the dollar amount up in surplus years, and then in deficit years, you backfill by 100%. So you meet the annual budget as long as you have reserves. And then if that trend continues year over year, then you know that you need to make budgetary adjustments when you're planning in the following year.
And where does the percent number come from?
16.7% is 2 months of revenues as projected, or expenses rather, as projected on an annual budget.
Sorry, no, the 50% number, the sweep number.
50% was just an arbitrary number that I figured, here's a windfall. So you take half of it and you spend it on publicly beneficial purposes, because that's what taxpayer dollars are supposed to do. And you take the other half and you shelter it away for a rainy day. So it was just a random sort of arbitrary number that I chose.
Chelsea, are you able to see on my screen the language from last year you had asked?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, cool.
I guess my only question is I'm hesitant to suggest specific.
You're muffled again.
Without, oh, sorry. I'm hesitant to suggest a specific percentage without having a little bit more data about what that percentage should be. Anyone else have thoughts on that?
I missed the first part. I'm sorry.
I think she's worried about the 50%, the 50% number without having data to back that up.
Like, is there some sort of best practice or standard practice that is based off of, or something that makes sense, or should it be more open-ended that we believe a percentage sweep makes sense and that percentage should be set based on some sort of best practice?
Well, the best practice is the 16.7% period, but they're not following that. So I wanted to give them some structure that they could follow so that they have a way to adjust automatically in a year over year surplus. The problem here is that we have a policy that's in place, and council year after year after year is not following that policy. So it is basically has the same effect in my mind as not having a policy at all.
Mm-hmm.
So we're giving them a fair target to shoot for that allows them to adjust year after year. And the 50% was just arbitrary. I mean, we could even say just 100%, sweep 100% and bump the target amount, only spend reserves in deficit times. But I don't think that's a fiscally responsible solution. I mean, that's effectively what they're doing now, but arguably, I would say.
Chelsea and Suzanne, do you guys want to? I think I may need to spend a little bit more time thinking about this paragraph. Do you want to take 24 on it, and we can? Well, I was going to say we can reconvene over email, but I don't think we can. Or can we?
We can reconvene via Google Doc.
Okay. I think I just need a little bit more processing time on it.
I think that's important because this is a pretty significant proposal. So I think that's fair.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
In that case, sorry, go ahead.
I'll just reiterate that the spirit of the proposal is to have a written policy that makes sense and that can be met. Right now, we have a written policy that's regularly not being met. If we plan to adjust the reserves year after year in surpluses or deficits, then the reserves are actually serving a purpose. Right now, it's just a number, 16.7%.
If you felt as though the council was honoring the policy as currently written, would you be okay with that? Or is there still a change that you would recommend?
This change has the benefit of allowing a drop below that as a matter of planned policy in a deficit year. So as it stands right now, if we had a humongous deficit year after year after year, we would do like we did from 2000 to 2003 or 2004, and we would just draw on reserves year after year after year until we couldn't anymore. This plan allows us to maintain a reserve that's large enough to sort of flatten ebbs and flows so that we can have a stable budget year after year. That's kind of what I'm trying to get at. Currently, if we have a terrible year and we drop below 16.7%, we're breaking policy. Likewise, with an extra $10 million in the bank, we're breaking policy. With the ratcheting and sliding plan, we have a policy that changes according to circumstances, and it changes in an orderly way.
Steve, I definitely hear the spirit of what you're proposing, and I think I would, at this point, I mean, I'm happy to take another 24 hours, but would be probably more in support of what we proposed last year with the same concept of the ratcheting effect. I think it's the 50%. I just am not so comfortable with something that we've described as an arbitrary number. And I understand that the feeling of the number already is arbitrary, but I think if we're going to make a proposal, I'd like to have a little bit more substance behind that. So either that, or maybe, I don't know if anyone would be in favor of just removing that section and going back to the simpler kind of ratcheting concept.
I mean, what would you be more comfortable if we set a percentage target, like up to 1% per year in growth or something along those lines?
I guess whatever recommendation we would make, I would want to have a reason for making it.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Does that make sense? That's
yeah.
just
I get the objection. I think if we analyze ebb and flow over the past years, we could probably hit a number that makes more sense. Obviously, when you're drawing from savings, you have a tendency to deplete them faster than you're growing reserves generally, especially if you're only growing your reserves half as fast as you're drawing from them in a deficit year. But I think if we analyze past drops, and there was a 20-year chart that I did, I think it was the appendix on last year's report. I can probably find a better target that we might be more comfortable with based on those.
Yeah, I think that would be useful to show kind of where that number comes from. I think would make this to show the thought process would be really useful.
Okay. Yeah, I added that number because I wanted more specific structure. But you're correct, it's arbitrary and that doesn't make a lot of sense.
Thanks so much for being receptive to that.
Next step, do we want, is the next step for Steve to, I guess, show the work and then bring it back to us in the next couple of days, or what are our next steps as far as timeline, and so how much latitude does he have on time?
Yeah, I think we need to knock this out by the end of the week.
So then we should probably get a backup plan if I don't come through with the actual numbers. And that could just be as simple as repeating what we repeated last year, word for word.
Any other thoughts on questions?
Sorry, I couldn't really hear that. What was the?
Sorry for all the trouble. Just does anyone else have thoughts on preferences about using last year's language versus the current language if there's no change?
I'm sorry, I still couldn't. Let me try to get some headphones to see if that helps me. Was somebody else? All right. Well, I'm not able to find any.
I think she was asking, if I heard correctly, if there's any other thoughts about what we could potentially do in this section besides using last year's language.
I guess I wouldn't have a problem using last year's language. I understand the way that you rewrote it was trying to explain it in more detail, and I do support that. I'm wrapping my head around it right now. I guess in absence of additional information, I would maybe err on the side of going back to last year's language, but I don't really. Suzanne, do you have a preference?
I don't love the idea of using last year's language. I think we should have something fresh.
Okay, well then how about I'm happy to take this and rework it in a way that I think I understand what you mean, and then I'll send it to you, Steve, and you can tell me if I've completely butchered your idea.
That sounds good, Joel. And I think you might find that 20-year chart useful in that endeavor. I could be wrong on that, but
yeah.
I think we appended it to last year's report, or if it wasn't last year, then it was 18.
Okay. Okay, I can do that.
Just to be clear too, if no one else has a concern around the 50% number, I'm happy to be outvoted.
I mean, I think it makes sense to have reasoning behind it. I mean, I know that it's for discussion right now, but I would feel more comfortable if there was a justification. Personally.
Yeah, I'll take a look at that 20-year as well and see if anything stands out to me and if I think anything's more appropriate than 50%.
Okay.
Yeah, Joe, take the lead. I'll let you know if I have anything to contribute.
I'll take a hack at it. If anything, it'll help me understand it better by trying to rephrase. So, then I think our last section is Inglewood Police Department.
Mm-hmm.
So, implementation of body cameras.
Yep. So, Chelsea, do you want to speak to this, or shall I jump in?
Why don't you? Because I'm clearly having an audio problem. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Chelsea. It may be my computer.
No, I hear it too, Joel. I think you're fine. So there's essentially two parts to this. So part one, part two, part 2A, B, and C. So the first part is the body cams, and a lot of this it's going to happen anyway. What we're advising is a certain approach to funding it. So, and I am behind on council meetings also. So if there's been discussion on this recently, I'm not informed. But Chief Collins presented to council beginning of June, talked about two funding options for implementing police cameras, and the technology to support them and the administrative staff that was necessary to support them. So what we're proposing, we're in favor of the first of the two options that he proposed. We listed the dollar amounts here, the cloud-based solution. When Chelsea and I met, we're very much in favor of the 3 FTE required for the technical support. The math makes sense to me. And if the opportunity is available, we're also in favor. We think this is a great opportunity for using residual funds from the police building bond if they're available. So that's the high level description there. Any questions or comments?
That makes sense to me. Chelsea had put a note in there about whether there was about this being an unfunded mandate, and I know that there wasn't any funding attached to this year's bill, but I really feel like there was a state grant program within the last 2 years for body camera purchases, but it's also possible that that's run out of money. So I'm sure that the Chief Collins would know more about it than I do.
Yeah.
I have to do a little more digging on that, though.
Yeah, and as far as cost sharing, I mean, I don't know Sheridan's finances. I just know they have their own police department. It's a very small city. I find it hard to believe that they're going to be able to independently finance, finance the implementation of these police cams as it's required in the Senate bill. So I wonder if there's an opportunity to cost share with neighboring municipalities like the city of Sheridan. I mean, it could be Littleton or Greenwood Village or what have you, but and I think it's worth exploring. So we propose that it be explored.
Sounds good to me. Steve, any comments on that one?
I actually kind of wonder a little bit why we're not discussing vehicle cams, dash cams as well. I know there are nearby municipalities that employ those, and that technology is automatic, as opposed to body cams, which can sometimes not be activated.
I guess I don't know. I guess I assumed that our police cars had dash cams. Do they not?
They do not.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and as I understand it, they require the same level of support that body cams do as well. So now they don't have dash cams.
Okay.
Chelsea, thoughts? Do we want to explore this and incorporate it into the report?
My only thought is, I have it up, but I don't believe that Chief Collins, when he made his request before Senate Bill 217 was introduced, that he made that request. And I would be curious why he didn't, if he thinks that perhaps that's not useful, or if he was thinking it was maybe too expensive. I'd be curious if he thinks that they're effective before we recommended it.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it's part of the waterfall approach to implementing all things police cameras.
Mm-hmm.
I can give you my opinion on the matter, which is that the subject of body cams came up as a council request. It was not the first time that council had discussed it, as I understand it, but it's the first time that they discussed it and they had, $10 million in the bank. So this, and to my knowledge, they did not discuss dash cams at all. But I think, from a citizen standpoint, if you're going to buy body cams, why don't you buy dash cams as well?
Well, and it would seem like there might be some sort of economy of scale if it uses the same software software and technology that the body cams would use. It seems like it might be a good opportunity to maybe make a move on that.
Is it redundant to have a dash cam and a body cam?
Not necessarily. So
yeah, I'm not an expert on law enforcement, but I do watch police videos from time to time, different angles. Also, dash cams activate at different times, like when the lights and sirens are on, as opposed to a body cam, which would basically just capture a picture of a steering wheel for the entire pursuit. A dash cam can capture a video of a pursuit, or of a DUI suspect, or other things like that.
Yeah, and I was speaking with one of our police officers a few weeks ago when the initial draft of that Senate bill came out that had that language indicating if there was absent camera footage, then, and there was some kind of questionable behavior, in this, you know, during an incident, then the officer would be assumed liable. And the officer that I was speaking to was saying, you know, if I arrive on scene to an active shooting, I'm more concerned about pulling out my firearm than I am about turning on my body cam.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Which button am I going to push first? Which piece of equipment am I going to reach for first? So with this dash cam thing, I hear you. I feel like as we sit here today on July 28th, as a group, we're not informed enough about dash cams as we are about the body worn cameras. So, I mean, we could add one sentence in there if budget allows, and if the police department asks for it, please support the implementation of dash cams. We shouldn't have the numbers or any information about it. So does that require additional FTE? Does it require a unique set of technology? So I don't mind adding a sentence in there, but I don't want to speak too much about it because I just don't feel like we're informed enough.
Well, I'm looking at the fiscal note that Chelsea just shared in the chat, and it's not statute, but the fiscal note says that beginning July 1, 2023, these officers must wear and activate body worn or a dashboard camera as applicable. So there would be, based on the language in the fiscal note, it seems like a mandate for both.
Yeah, or the option. I think maybe we could add a note about exploring, you know, all options that are within Senate Bill 217, both body camera and dash cam, and then kind of allow them to make the correct decision based on need and budget and efficacy.
Yeah, and I'm going to state this very simply. Chief Collins tends to be pretty conservative about what he asks for in terms of the budget. And in simplest terms, I just feel like we should honor his request because I think he really is respectful of the city budget and taxpayer dollars. So if he comes with a request, I feel like it's legitimate and reasonable.
No, I believe it's probably.
Yeah.
You said that the request came before 217, though?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I mean, yeah. Okay.
And just something else to call out in this fiscal note that I shared is the way that I'm reading it. The fiscal note for the bill is for state patrol to have these accommodations and be in compliance, as well as personnel costs with the Division of Criminal Justice. But I don't see anything that would provide grants for municipalities.
Yeah, I think the grant would have been a 2018 or 19 bill.
That's a separate one.
I'll have to dig on that overnight also, or tomorrow while.
So we've got 15 minutes left, and I'd really like to get to the end of this by 6:30.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Community.
No, don't apologize.
I think we're on the same page about saying that as possible, explore body cams and how that could fit in, or dash cams and how that could fit into the purchase of body cams.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool. Community policing.
Yeah, community policing. So there's three areas of focus here: the impact team, the zone team, and all health, or the SIT team. I think in our current social climate, it's important to highlight the importance of community policing. I think with the city's strategic plan in mind and themes around enhancing the vibrancy of our downtown area, it's really important that we support, maintain, if not expand, the zone team. Steve, you talked about Cushing Park. Impact team is going to play a role there. And I need to complete this paragraph about all health, but objectively speaking, when the chief told me that the return on investment is $350,000, I found that to be pretty notable. So it's good for the city's finances, and it's also good for the community and the people who interact with our police officers. So, well, I'll bust out some language here, but those are the three specific areas. And then this area that's highlighted, Joel, if you scroll down just a little bit, so it's in view. I added this, and I just wanted to be very clear and direct in our support of the police department, but I don't want to have the sentence in here unless all four of us are in agreement. Council's received some contradictory feedback, which is why I felt it was important we have a statement like this in here.
Oh, is this in response to defund the police?
Yeah. And like Member Wink said in that particular meeting, I don't see how investing in parks and education is going to reduce the police department's use of force. And I also don't understand how dumping finances into education is going to it's going to happen without some major policy change. So
yeah, I mean, I get I understand the defund sentiment. Absolutely, I mean, any sort of action like that would need some really well thought out alternatives for the use of the funds, and like really positive reasoning for why that money should go to a different organization or different department.
I'm really just wondering, are you guys okay with this, or do you want to nix it? You don't love it.
I don't love it. I don't. I don't know that anything. I don't know. How do you guys feel?
So, well, the other thing I'm thinking of I have in mind is, in no part of our report are we talking about restricting or reducing the police department's funding or operations.
I think
so.
I think
this might be a case for the old Ward tact. If we're replying to perceived attacks with this line, maybe we should address those perceived attacks and just say, while there has been widespread talk in various communities about defunding the police, and then finish with the sentence, because it just kind of hangs there, lingers randomly, as if we're addressing something that doesn't really fit with anything else right now.
Okay.
For me, I think what we've written, all the paragraphs preceding this statement, and clearly state how we think that the city should evaluate the police department's budget. I do wonder if this maybe gets a little political in a way that maybe is unnecessary for this forum. Do we need to make this statement in a way that it isn't already made in the previous paragraph?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to. I mean, I know that this is a non-binding recommendation, and that you have whatever discussion about, whatever you want to have. But I don't want to shoehorn us in if there comes like an amazing opportunity such that somehow there's an organization through Arapahoe County is going to start answering calls with social workers as a primary, things like that. If we have an opportunity for such a thing, we're not painting ourselves into a corner with this document, but I don't want us to paint ourselves in a corner generally, if that makes sense.
So no on the word tact then.
Okay, pull it.
Well, alternatively, I'm happy to write a sentence that I can live with, and we can see if you guys can live with it.
And yeah, sure. It's probably more moderate than my statement right there. Okay, so we'll table that to Google Doc revisions.
Okay, sounds good. Sorry, Suzanne.
No, don't apologize. It's okay. And then finally, we should draft a strong summary conclusion statement. So these were just some ideas that I came up with. If you guys can add to this, great. And then if someone wants to draft a conclusion, great. I'll try to, jump in there as well and draft something. But I think it's nice to speak to some good decisions that have been made, especially in recent months.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. I think it's absolutely important to celebrate value where in the spots that we see it. I think the city's done wonderful things supporting the downtown businesses and restaurants, and I'm really happy for that. So,
Is there
folks, I think for that.
Yeah. Does anyone have any ideas that I don't have listed there?
I'll just say the one that out of all these in the list that's most important to me is the last one, the tax policy enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
Huge benefit to the city. It was, in 16, 17, 18, it was open season on England. Pay your taxes if you feel like it. It's not anymore.
Let's bump that one to the top.
I can do that. So other than these items, do we want to reiterate the recommendations from previous in the document, or do we want to keep it to, I guess we could applaud the city for these things and then reiterate our previous recommendations?
Yeah, and I would just keep the reiterations to like 2 or 3 sentences.
Bullet point. Yep.
Yeah.
Can I say one more thing on that tax policy enforcement?
Sure.
This actually came with an expenditure. We had to hire an auditor,
Mm-hmm.
and that auditor has paid her salary more than effectively.
Right.
So generating a new expense, particularly on personnel, is not always bad.
Mm-hmm. And we knew that.
Agreed. High five.
We knew that before it went into place. So.
But when you add cops, you get a more stable city with better able to prevent and address crime. When you add a tax auditor, people start paying their taxes. These things do have positive effects.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Okay, so sliding and ratcheting, Joel and Steve are gonna work on that.
Hello.
Joel, you're gonna write a conclusion statement about our police department. Collectively, we can work on a conclusion and wrap this thing up by the end of the week.
Absolutely. I am out of town on Thursday and Friday, so Thursday through the weekend. So I'm gonna try to get as much of like the polish and the parts that you just mentioned for me done by end of day tomorrow.
Okay.
And so I'll let you guys work on it from there if that works.
Yep. Yeah, so let's use our last 5 minutes in identifying our new chair and vice chair.
Oh, I thought I talked ourselves out of that one.
I've served 2 terms. And Steve, didn't you serve 2 terms before I joined?
I did. Yes.
Yeah. So Jenny, can you offer us some direction in how to move forward?
Well, we could definitely have some nominees of the group. Joel, Chelsea.
If I remember correctly, Chelsea, I think that when we did your vice chair appointment, we had agreed that you would do chair next and I would come in the vice chair. Is that?
I have no recollection of that, but I'm happy to do that. I don't know how good of a chair I will be. I know oftentimes, unfortunately, my job has prevented me from being as engaged as I would prefer. But I'm also happy to help out in any way that I can. Also would note that it says you can't serve more than 2 consecutive terms. So Steve, there's still an opening for you.
What was that you were saying? I was just thinking about board term limits.
Are these one-year terms as officers?
I couldn't hear you.
Sorry, are these one-year terms as officers?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to put this out there. I moved to, forgive me, placing a motion to, I want Chelsea to be our chair. I move that Chelsea become our new chair.
And Chelsea, I also, well, pre-COVID, I was traveling a lot, and that's why I missed a couple of our in-person meetings. So I am happy to be your vice chair and take on sort of a tag team role if one of us can't be here.
Looks like that's what's in the cards for us. That would sound
I
great.
think that's what's going to happen.
So do we have a second? Joel, were you our second?
Second. Sure.
Okay.
Chelsea, are you okay with that?
Yes, as long as you guys have grace for me, that I will not probably be able to do this as well as I wish I could. Happy to stand in for the team.
I'm all about grace.
Jenny, do you need an official vote?
Yes, we'll need a vote, please.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Bye.
Okay, then I'm going to move that we appoint Joel to our vice chair position.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Well done.
Suzanne.
With a minute and a half to spare.
So just so I'm clear, so we have, we'll get through all of this document this week, and then it gets presented to the city council on what date?
Monday, August 10th.
Monday, August 10th. Okay. And will that be the duty of Chelsea or Suzanne or someone else?
Oh, that's a really good question. The last couple of years I have spoken to council, we usually just, create a one-page summary to guide us through the conversation. I'm happy to do that this year. Chelsea, if you want to do it, I don't want to steal your thunder.
No thunder to be stolen. I'm happy for you to do it.
Okay.
Unless anyone else would like to. I don't know how that works.
Say it again.
Nothing. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, if everyone's okay with it, I'll just take the lead on August 10th. Steve, I'm going to let you speak to all things reserve policy. Thanks, guys.
I think you get what you deserve.
You can tell how flattered he is.
All right, we can go ahead and adjourn. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Jenny.
Bye-bye.